We are going, we're going to take a few minutes to make sure we get everyone in from the waiting room. Um, Good to see you all. Well, see all your names anyway, in white on a black background. I am very excited to talk to you today to do a Ask Me Anything dental interview prep. My name is Ellen, and I have a lot of admissions background in dental schools. So we will get into that in a minute. What I'd like you to do is feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat as we go, and I am just going to go through them, answer as many of them as I can, in order to help you out as much as I can as we do this final countdown. And if you would, of course, like to work with me after this is over, please scan right here, the front page, to sign up for Leland. And Erica will drop my link in the chat, and you'll be able to reach out to me. I do have a few openings left, and I do have some packages that are being offered. So by all means, sign up for a free 15-minute chat with me, and we'll see what we can do to help you move your hopes for dental school admissions along. Okay, I just want to tell you who I am. I began my career at Columbia University as the director of admissions for the dental school. I worked my way up to that, and I worked at Columbia for about 14 years. As I was there, what I did was screen applications, hold interviews both on and off site. I would travel the country interviewing dental students. I was part of the financial aid committee where I would help award merit scholarships. And I kind of set the tone for what our admissions process was with the committee, who we were looking at when we were screening, what we were looking for, what we were assessing during interviews. That was a really fun job because I got to understand a lot about what dental admissions is all about and what the profession requires in terms of competencies for success beyond just academics. I then moved on to become the assistant dean in the postbac program at Columbia University, working with non-traditional students, and a similar job at Fordham University, where I built up the pre-health program at the Rose Hill campus. I worked at each of those places for about 10 years. And now I am here helping you. So let's see what I can do for you. Anybody have any questions for me? Let's see here. Any questions you have, you're going to have to drop in the chat, or else you'll just hear me talking. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about what dental admissions is, right? So when you are trying to get into dental school, there are 3 different things that matter: your grades from the prerequisite coursework, as well as somewhat the other coursework, but most importantly is your biology, chemistry, physics, GPA. That's important for schools to see because they want to know that you can handle the rigor that is coming your way. Dental school is not easy. Many dental schools in the US take classes with their medical school counterparts. So you're taking rigorous basic science education. So they need to know that your biology, your general chemistry, your organic chemistry, your physics, your biochemistry, all is at a solid foundation so you can build up and be able to kind of continue on in that education as you go. Aside from your academics, they certainly want to see that your boards are in a strong position. Why is that? It's because all of you are coming from different colleges, so that that dental board, the DAT, allows them to assess you all using the same rubric, right? How did everyone do on this test that everyone took? What surprises some people is recognizing that one of the most important scores on the DAT is the reading comprehension section. Reading comprehension has a statistical correlation with how you'll do on the national boards part 1. If you're not aware, the national boards part 1 and part 2 are what you need to pass to be licensed as a practicing dentist. And so your national board scores, part 1, are going to be what get you that residency. You want to be an orthodontist, you want to be a pediatric dentist, you want to be an oral surgeon. They're going to be looking at how you do in dental school and how your national board scores are. So understanding that you do well in reading comprehension coming in gives them a sense that you are going to do well on the national boards going out the door. In addition to your grades and your national boards, it's what you've done outside the classroom that matters. Have you done any research? How much do you know about the dental profession from clinical work? How much have you done leadership activities or been of service to your community, however you choose to define community? And what are you bringing to the table that's unique? A lot of people say to me when they're writing their personal statement, it's good, but I don't kind of have that one thing, right? I don't have that one thing that's going to make me stand out above everyone else. And in fact, you don't need that. Everyone applying to dental school has more or less come from the same idea and the same foundation of bringing them to the same point. So what you need to do is be able to speak authentically about your experiences. They don't have to be something no one's ever heard before. Maybe you fell off your bike and knocked out your front teeth when you were little and you thought all was lost, and actually your dentist was able to give you your smile back and restore your self-confidence. We actually read that a lot in dental admissions. It's a common essay, but it doesn't make it any less authentic, right? So if that's your experience, go ahead and feel comfortable writing that. Hold on one sec. Okay, good questions coming in. Jennifer Hernandez, advice for MMIs when you go in a room and have to act things out. Pretending to be a dentist. You actually don't have to pretend to be a dentist. The MMI is the multiple mini interviews. They give you a scenario that you have to read, 2 or 3 sentences long, and it says this is what you're going to find inside the room, and you have to go in and you have to deal with it. How we can practice for this, that's a great question. The MMI is not looking for you to be a perfect actor and say, now I'm an oral surgeon and I will talk about how I'll treat you. They're looking for what your instinct is to deal with a situation that you will find inside. The situation could be anything. It could be a nervous patient. It could be an angry neighbor. It's not necessarily dental related. It could be someone cheating. It could be someone crying. It could be someone confused. They're presenting you with a scenario, giving you 1 or 2 minutes to think it over. And you walk in the door and you kind of find that, and how do you deal with it? Well, you don't have to be perfect, but they want to know, what is your instinct? And what they're looking for in these instances is professionalism, empathy, communication skills, teamwork, honesty, reliability, things that you would want to see in a professional. So you walk in the door and someone's fighting with you. They don't want you to fight back. They want you to calm the situation down and talk out what's happening. Ask some questions, better understand the situation, and try and connect with the people in there. So that's what the MMIs are. They're kind of fun. People usually come back. You do 7 or 8 of them for the interview day. The idea is that it takes the bias out of interviewing, right? You're not talking to the same person for 30 minutes. You're actually going through 7 or 8 scenarios. And so 7 or 8 people are evaluating you as you go. And I've never had anyone return and say that was terrible. They always return kind of smiling and saying that was pretty funny. It was interesting. Your adrenaline gets going. That's good. So I'm happy to help anyone prepare for those. They seem daunting, but in fact, they're not really. Do I handle international dentist profiles? If you're talking about advanced standing programs, I do have a package for internationally trained dentists who want to join advanced standing programs in the US. Yes, I do. So that's something you could look for on my profile. Let's see, when asked, tell me about yourself, what have you noticed from successful candidates and how they answer this? That is a great question. When I say tell me about yourself, I don't want you to start at kindergarten and end up at today. I want you to give me some milestones of your life. So a good thing to do with tell me about yourself is think of 3 or 4 or 5 things. Where are you from, right? Because I don't know anything about you in an interview. Apologies. I don't know anything about a candidate, even if I'm reading your whole NSS application in front of me, right? I don't know a lot about you from the horse's mouth. So when I say tell me about yourself, it's good for you to just kind of give me an overview, right? What is your name? Where did you grow up? Where are you from? Where did you go to college, or where are you in college? What are you majoring in? And what do you like to do kind of outside of the classroom? Do you dance? Do you write? Do you paint? Are you a leader in student government? Any of those things work. So when we get to the end of that question, I, as the interviewer, are going to say, oh, you're from San Diego? I love San Diego. What part do you live in? And we're going to kick off from there. So you give those milestones of your life. The second question is, by logic, going to bounce off of your answer. And suddenly you're 2 questions into the interview and you've allowed your nerves to really come down. So that's a good way to handle tell me about yourself. Is it advised to bring in humor in one of your answers when you answer it? Oh, okay, great question. Yes, who doesn't love a little bit of humor? The answer is some interviewers don't love a little bit of humor. So you want to read the room. I would save the humor for close to the end of the interview to see if you've had someone who's been, kind of pretty loose, pretty funny, and using humor from their side to you. I would not lead with humor. Um, let's see, tips for the Kira interviews. Okay, Kira is kind of the pre-interview that's a little bit of you have 30 seconds to tell me about a scenario when you felt uncomfortable or something like that. Sometimes you have a minute, sometimes you have 2 minutes. It can be tension filled for you to go into it, but Kira tends to be very, very simple questions. What they're looking for in Kira is a same idea. All these are looking for the same thing, your professionalism, your articulation in this instance, your ability to think on your feet, use critical thinking skills, and give a concise answer. If you're worried about running out of time, have a silent clock right next to your computer, although there is a clock as part of the Kira countdown. Take a breath and just go. You would be surprised that most people don't run out of time. Most people find they're done with their answer before time runs out. But feel confident in doing it. There are practice areas online that you can do. Kira has some practice scenarios on the Acuity website. So I would recommend going through that. But don't worry too much about any of this, right? These things are, although they're fraught with nerves, once you get in them, you start to really kind of realize what they're looking for. Some last minute interview tips. So I'm assuming that this is before you're going into the interview, if we're hypothetically, excuse me, saying that the interview is tomorrow, what the tips would be. The night before your interview, read your AdSAS application from beginning to end, actually from end to beginning. You're used to going through it. You remember when you wrote it, but you want to wake up that information and not feel that like, yeah, I'm just reading this again and again. Start with the last thing you entered, just so when reading it, it's a little bit out of order from what you remember. So that's going to maybe make you pay attention a little bit more. Remember how you described these scenarios, because this is all that the schools have to question you about. So should someone decide to dig very deep into, the eighth experience you gave that was working at a bookstore when you were in 11th grade, you included it on a whim, and suddenly they're going to ask you all about that. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, it was June. What did I even say? I don't remember writing that. So wake up your own experiences by reading through it and be ready to talk about those experiences. It's also smart for you to think about and maybe make a list for yourself the night before, bullet points, not full sentences, because you don't want to be trying to remember full sentences you memorized and then your interview sounds rehearsed. But bullet points about some patient care experiences you've had, right? I would say to people, oh, you worked in a pediatric dentist's office. Tell me about the worst day you had and the best day you had. I want to know and understand that you know the rewards and challenges of the job. So write down some patient care experience bullet points that you remember, screaming child, happy mother, whatever it might be. Write down some community service projects that you've done, some leadership opportunities. I would say challenge yourself with assuming you'll get a question about, tell me about a time when you had to navigate an argument between people in a classroom on a group project or friends or something like that. Thinking about how you handle conflict, right? Some ideas about that. Just start to brainstorm some generic questions that you can assume you'll be asked, and bullet point those answers for yourself so you have something that you've kind of tried to tuck into your brain before the interview. Also, read about the school. Know everything there is about that school from the website. Understand what their placement rate is. Understand what their community clinics are like. See if you can find out who their patient population is. When I say, tell me why you want to come to my school, don't tell me because it's close to your house, right? That is the kiss of death. Tell me you want to come to my school because you took note that the school has a pediatric clinic where they serve kids from this part of town that the school is in, and you saw that they actually were able to work with 1,500 kids last year. And you're wondering, as a pre-doctoral student, how much you're able to do. Are you working with residents? Are you working with attending physicians and dentists? Do you do anything that's restorative? What do you do with these kids? That's the area I'm interested in. That tells me that you know a lot about my school, that you've done your research, and that you're excited to be here. Compare that with, why do you want to go to school here? And you lead with, well, it's pretty close to my house and I could live at home. right? Not a good answer. So you want to go to school at a place because of real things that you can pull from who they are. So that's a great last minute interview tip for you. Let's see, what else do we have? Following up on my previous question, is it okay to not bring up interest in dentistry when asked, tell me about yourself? Yeah, that's going to come up regardless. I haven't said, tell me about dentistry. I've said, tell me about yourself. You can either include that or not include that. But remember, this is going to be the first question, likely. We are going to get to everything in this interview if I'm interviewing you. So don't worry too much about that. You can't give a wrong answer with tell me about yourself. So don't be concerned. If someone started with a dental clinic assistance but moved into working extensively in health informatics, whoops, I lost that, or public health, and then they decide to return to dentistry, how can they convince the interviewer their knowledge of public health and informatics would be helpful? Well, any dentist would recognize that. I mean, that will be very helpful. And why not public health? You don't have to say why not public health, right? You don't have to go to the pessimistic. You can say, the reason I came back to dentistry was this. And presumably your reason is authentic, and you're able to articulate how you are going to bring health informatics and your public health knowledge into a career in dentistry. And that's going to be a great combination. So you can be very, very honest. Interviewers are not going to not believe you. They're simply going to say, walk me through how you started in dentistry, went to this, and came back to dentistry. What did you learn about public health and health informatics that can apply to dentistry, and how did you realize that? And they might say, are you sure that dentistry is the right move for you now? And you say, yes, because ABC, right? You explain why it is. So what you're doing in the interview is you're really articulating your motivations, and you're helping them to understand why you made the choices you made. They're not going to feel that you're being dishonest with them. It's just a person talking to another person about what brought them here. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Is it advised to indicate interest in research and mention a few faculty research projects that I'm interested in at that school? Oh, yeah, that would be great. The follow-up question, would that lead to why not research instead of clinical dentistry? Excellent question, right? If you're applying to a school and your research interest is already so broad and your experience is so deep and you've done a tremendous amount of research, I might say to you, just to test the waters as an interviewer, I note how much research you've done. You're asking me a lot about research. Why not get a PhD? Right? That's always the question. Not saying you don't want to do this. Say, why not get a PhD? And then you would pivot and say to me, well, I'm very interested in research for this reason within the field of dentistry, but my interest in dentistry is stronger and it's for this reason. Remember, a lot of dentists, particularly academic dentists, do research at their universities. When I was at Columbia, the associate dean was a DDS PhD, and she had a tremendous amount of research going at all times. She had a very, very high functioning lab. So don't assume there's no research in dental school, but make sure you can always articulate, I love research, but dentistry is the primary thing, but I do want to merge them together. Remember, if you're asking about research that's happening at their institution, probably it's being done by dentists. So they're going to understand and know that you understand the profession deeper than people who want to go into general dentistry. You're seeing kind of a more broad application of the education. That's a good thing. Asked about an ethical situation. Would it be harmful to talk about a needle stick that happened to me once and there was no protocol in place? Well, I would say, well, what did you do? Right? There's no protocol in place. So what was your next move? Where did we go with this? Who did you report this to? Who did you talk to about this? I mean, we're going to talk about the situation. Was anything changed after there was a needle stick and they realized there was no protocol, right? Were you involved in that change? How did you handle that emotionally? That's a really fraught situation. So a lot of questions will come from that. It's up to you whether you want to get into that or not. What is the best answer to the question about a patient asking you for free care because they can't afford it? And what would I do? That is a very common ethical question. So in an ethical question, you want to be able to state different, I should say your understanding of this. So any ethical question you say, okay, so as I understand it, and you're going to repeat the question back, right? The stakeholders in this are me as a dentist, a patient needing care. Do I own this practice or am I an associate in this practice, right? Am I working in a clinic or is this at the dental school? Is that in this town or is that in the town that I live in right now? Right. So you get all kind of the pieces together. And then you say, well, if it's not my practice, I don't have the ability to give away free care. I'm an employee. I would offer to help the patient potentially find a dental school in the area that could provide lower cost care. I would find some sort of social services in the area we could work with. Presumably, this isn't the first time it's come up. We could talk about payment plans or a sliding scale. I recognize that there are issues with patient populations that are underserved and don't have the ability to pay for this. I am a healthcare professional. I want to try and take care of this patient as best I can. I would try and investigate those different areas, right? So you're not just saying yes or no, you're saying, well, this is a complicated situation. Most importantly, do I own the practice or is this someone else's? And if you own the practice, maybe this is something you do pro bono on occasion, but something to talk through and recognize that there's a lot going on, but there are also options out there for people, we hope. What questions should we ask after the interview? Very good question from you, Lynn. Should it be anything related to the school's facilities and curriculum? You would think so, right? And that would be a good follow-up question. However, usually before your interview, you've already had a big presentation about the school where they touch on the facilities and they go in depth on the curriculum. Ideally, you understand the curriculum from the research you've done on the website too. So if all of your questions have been answered prior to the interview, nothing wrong with saying, we got a great overview this morning from the Dean of Admissions. I learned so much about the school. All the questions I was coming in with have been answered. But then you can turn around and say, I'm interested in whatever it might be and asking how that would fit in the curriculum, right? So if you can say, I currently work in a pediatric clinic and I love it so much. Is there an opportunity for students to go into local elementary schools and teach kids good oral hygiene? Are there opportunities for predoctoral students to volunteer in the clinic, or is that only for the residents? Clinic out in the community, I mean, not the dental school clinic. How do you, as a faculty member, see the dental students? What are they like? How are they socially? What sort of academic support is there? So you want to ask more about the community at large. You can always think of something that hasn't been touched on, but you are kind of reaching out and saying, I really want to be a part of this community. So what can you tell me about the areas that I have interest in? How will I be able to find them here? And then they're learning a little bit more about you from the question that you asked. What are cliches or red flags you've come across in a candidate interview that made you instantly reject them? I find my experiences to be solidly in the middle of the bell curve, and fear I might end up sounding too generic. No one sounds generic. If it's your experience, it's authentic. So think about how you answer that. Think about how you bring those experiences back around to reinforcing what you want to do. Maybe you went to your local college, had a generic major, did okay in your dental classes, volunteered with a local dentist, worked in the community for a bit, and now you're applying. You feel that's generic, right? But you can talk about why you went to that college, what you did outside the classroom while you were there, what classes you liked that weren't the dental prereqs, how you learned about dentistry, what you saw at the local clinic, your best day and your worst day, what you learned about dentistry from volunteering that surprised you that you didn't know about. The more you tell me about your experiences, those bullet points I told you to write down and remember, the more authentic this interview is. And I say, this is someone who really knows what he wants to do. He has had a strong education. He found an interest in history while he was majoring in biology. So, that was a course that interested him. He likes to read about the Revolutionary War, whatever it might be, things that you discovered about yourself in college. That's okay. You want it to be authentic. It doesn't have to be earth shattering. So think about how you talk about yourself. If you're going to say to me, I really want to be at the school because I enjoy community service. And I know that you work in the community a lot, the student groups. I'm sitting there waiting for you to tell me what you do that's community service if you like it so much, right? So always elaborate on your answers. Don't just give a statement. I like community service. I want to come here because I know that your student groups do a lot out in the community. For instance, when I was in college, I was the vice president of the whatever fraternity, and we went out to raise money in these areas. This is what we did. These are the kinds of things I like to do. inform me about yourself with every answer. Doesn't matter if you wrote your whole essay about it. If you're telling me about it, I'm getting more out of it, and I'm getting a real sense of why you like to do what you do. Should I bring notes to prepare for answers during the interview? No, you want to be mentally prepared. The interview, you have to get in your head and kind of settle with it, is a conversation. It's a conversation between you and the person or the people you're interviewing. They're trying to get to know you. You're trying to make sure that you are expressing who you are in a good way and filling in a lot of information about yourself in every answer. But it's nothing that you should all feel, oh, I had prepared this and I should have said exactly this and I didn't. If it's a nice back and forth, that's a good interview. I've had students come back and say, I had the worst interview. All we did was talk about fly fishing the whole time because I like fly fishing and so did my interviewer. That's actually the best interview, right? You connected with that person and they're going to go to the admissions committee. What are they going to say? Well, I rejected him because he likes fly fishing. No, they're going to say we had the best talk. What a great guy. Yeah, everything here looks good. Really interesting. I think he'd make a great student here. If you connect with that interviewer, you're in good shape. So have that conversation. Just chat, chat, chat. That's what you want to do. We have about 2 minutes left. Any other questions coming in here? Is it a good idea to bring up my interest in specializing? Oh my gosh, thank you for asking that question. So you want to be an oral surgeon and you're talking all about how much you want to be an oral surgeon. In my head, I'm saying we're not interviewing for oral surgery. This is a pre-doctoral interview, right? You're interviewing for a DDS or a DMD program. So you can mention, I think I want to do X, but also work in that you recognize that there's so much you haven't experienced yet and you're open to all of it. But yeah, having an interest in specialization, it could speak to kind of what's brought you to this point in the first place. That's good. But yeah, don't go in and just say, I'm going to be an endodontist and talk endlessly about that. We want to make sure that you understand in the interview process, you're not interviewing for a specialty here. What is the best answer for why you want to pursue DDS rather than residency? I don't quite understand that question. You can't pursue residency until you've completed your DDS. Okay, let's see. We have 1 minute left. One more question. Who's going to drop it in there? What's the best answer for why dentistry? Only you know that. You tell me why dentistry. I don't want to hear from you why not medicine or why not law or why not PhD. I want to hear, yes, why dentistry? What does this bring to the table for you? So you're a good fit for it and it's a good fit for you. Okay, and I think that's all the time we got. If any of you would like to work a little bit more with me, I think that Erica has put in the chat how you can connect with me, and you can go on the Leland page on my page and sign up for a free 15-minute phone call, and we can talk about what kind of help I can afford you and what kind of packages we could put together that would serve you well. I wish every one of you well in this process. It feels frightening, but it's not. There's help out there, and all you have to do is kind of practice bringing who you are to the process. There are no tricks involved. You just want to be you.